Today I'm going to talk about an incredibly interesting woman, a woman who is a Rosh Yeshiva. So why do I call How to Survive as a Rosh Yeshiva? Except Yeshiva is Ashkenazi and she's from Kurdistan, so it has to be a Yeshiva in Kurdistan. It's not going to be easy. How do you end up in that kind of position to begin with? We're talking about a woman born as Asnat. She was the daughter of Shmuel, the son of Ben Netanel Halevi. We do not know exactly when she was born, and you will see on the internet they give the dates. They took them from, I think, articles that I wrote for the encyclopedia, and they took out the question marks. 1590, more or less, until 1670, somewhere around there. We're talking about here the early 17th century, first half of the 17th century mostly, and most of her life she lived in Mosul in Kurdistan. Now, just being a woman head of a yeshiva, this is something we have to see. How did she get there? What did she do to get there? And how was she accepted at all? The wonderful thing about her is that we can hear her voice. This here, I just want to show you a sample of writing that it was from 17th century Kurdistan. Things that she wrote that I have translated for you. Listen, O sages. Sages, hear my words, and wise men will listen to me. I will make heard the pains of my malady. Perhaps my strength and my valor will return. I will scream and wail about learning because it has vanished from all my borders. Now, I should point out that this was a problem that she had with her father, and that her father had as well, that they felt that there was a lack of learning in Kurdistan, and as you will see, the two of them were anxious to improve the situation of knowledge. An illuminating spark has been covered inside a cloud dwelling in my assembly. The deep thinkers, wise men, and delvers into ideas are non-existent. The gates of understanding have closed. My ways and paths are unknown. I should tell you, of course, this is in beautiful Hebrew versus my English, which is not as beautiful as her Hebrew was there. But, here we go. This generation is gloomy. There is no preacher. I'll cry for my time in abandonment. I remain in a troubled situation. My hands and feet were tied. I measured pillars of earth, then I will arrange judges in judgment of me. I also close the breaches, midrash and prayer in the province. They disturbed my intellect. In the great confusion is my punishment that is upon me. I was presented as vapid. They removed my mantle and my cloak. I called out, act graciously, my foe, woe is me. And to which of the holy ones shall I turn? To the generous who cure my ills? You righteous ones, please have compassion for the teaching of my God, my rock and my redeemer. Not for my glory or benefit is my crying and weeping, nor for domestic need, nor for my clothing or my sustenance, but for the subsistence of the yeshivot, so that my strength will not be sapped from me. I will strengthen the soldiers of learning. On this my loins will fill the trembling. I will resurrect the fallen sukkah. I will remove all the barriers. So what we hear here is the fact that there's a lack of scholars, that it's a challenge to sustain the yeshiva, and who would have thought that a woman would be writing a beautiful Hebrew? For this every learned person will be in awe. The wise will also fear my words. Whether rich or poor, my foe will be sent to my heart and to my loin. Nothing helps. There is no support. Not a brother among my saviors, but to the generous of Israel, to the mountains of your aid, I lift my voice. So here we have, and now a word for the building fund instead, to the generous of Israel. She's turning for help. We hear her voice because it has just been a problem in supporting a yeshiva. So we already start off with, okay, there's something written by her that it's difficult to run a yeshiva, to sustain a yeshiva, also because in Kurdistan it's not such a wealthy community in order to be able to give her tremendous donations. But as I point out, we will soon see that she is not the only one who had to deal with this. You saved many who were cast to die. Release my chains so that the ember of the mountain will not be extinguished, a lit spark in the purity of my mind. And to the mountains a ray of barren desert, and my soul live because of me. Don't rush my tears, all my flutes will rejoice. I will succeed, I will become great, because I came with my request in writing. And your right is sublime up until the highest heavens, to the top of the tower, of my tower. Your name will be engraved in the high heavens, the ray of your grandeur for my growth. If my students will be scattered throughout the world, what will become of my days and my nights? Therefore hear me, righteous ones, people of justice, do listen to me. The fear that the yeshiva might close, and then what is the head of a yeshiva going to do? Okay, so we see that I started off just to show from what kind of image we have of this woman who is writing in, again, as I said, it's beautiful Hebrew that you can't appreciate, but you can see it. I haven't. Those of you who wrote Hebrew, it's an Hebrew article that my husband and I published in Pe'amim, and it's all there in the original. But how about her life? Let's see. This is also, here we've got, those who know Hebrew can see this, my translation. I never went outside. In this I was of daughter of Israel, Bat Melech Yisrael. Po Hayiti, Man Malchei Rabbani, B'Melchei Chachamim Gadalti. I was educated at the feet of sages. I was tied to my father of blessed memory. I was never taught any craft except for the heavenly craft, to uphold what is written, and you will recite it Yomam v'layla, v'hagita bo Yomam v'layla. This is amazing. This is a woman who is talking about how she got to where she is. She is the only daughter of a rabbi, an only daughter of a learned Talmid Chacham, a learned scholar, Shmuel, as I mentioned, the daughter of Shmuel, the son of Netanel Levi, who himself established a yeshiva in Mosul because of the problem that he felt that the country was really forlorn, was without learning, that he needed to improve it. And he built this yeshiva, and unfortunately, she said, my father had no sons, only daughters. We don't know of a sister. I don't know if she just said daughters out of literary to equivalency. She said sons, daughters. Indeed, he adjured my partner of blessed memory never to allow me to perform housework. And this is also, I love this line, that when she ended up marrying his top scholar, and she obviously didn't know how to cook, wasn't interested in cooking, or her father knew that she was extremely bright, extremely talented, and that her time would be best used by studying Torah and not wasted by doing housework. And to swear the partner, to swear her husband, and here he's already passed away, a blessed memory, but she's telling this story, she's telling this description of her background after he is gone, to say never to allow me to perform housework. I know many of my students would really like to, they ask me immediately, was this a condition in her ketubah, in her marriage contract, because they'd like to have one like this as well. So would I. But it wasn't. We don't think it was in her contract. We just think that he sat with him and said, please don't waste your wife's talents. Don't make her do housework. And thus he did as he was commanded. He listened to his father-in-law, who was also his Rosh Yeshiva. From the outset, The rabbi of blessed memory was preoccupied with his studies and had no time to teach the student, so I taught them in his stead. So basically what happened here historically is that her father was the head of the yeshiva. While there, he had taught his daughter as though she was his son. She was a Talmidat Chachamim, just like her husband, her future husband was. I assume that the father was very happy with this, with the match, the shidduch between them of marrying both of these students that he had trained. And she's telling that she had this lovely condition that she could devote herself to her studies. But what does a woman in Kurdistan do with all of this knowledge? Well, it turns out that her husband was not such a great administrator. He was preoccupied with his studies and had no time to teach the students. Her father had already passed away. Her husband had inherited the yeshiva, and she was practical. She saw, we've got these students here, they need to learn, they need to study, I better do something. And so what did she do? She taught them in his stead. And this is so amazing if you think about it. You know, it's not the maiden from Ludmir who came into the house of study there and had to supposedly hide behind some kind of, curtain and whatnot. She just plopped down where her husband had been, where her father had been, and she starts teaching the boys, the young men, she teaches them. And there's no revolution, and there's nobody carrying on, and there's nobody we don't hear her saying, oh my goodness, I lost 50% of them because they refused to study with the women. She just sat down, and they knew that she had gotten the best education possible because she had gotten it from Rav Shmuel. I was his true helpmate. She helped her husband. And now, unfortunately, he has gone to eternal rest and left me and the children in grief. So here we have, she doesn't have the obstacles in the beginning. She doesn't have, her father has taught her, and she is growing up like almost like a yentel, growing up there, but being a girl who is knowledgeable. And then when her father passes away and her husband takes over, she sees that she sees that if the yeshiva is going to continue, she's got to do something about it. So she just takes over. And now what's going to happen? He's gone, and he was the Rosh Yeshiva, and she was teaching, and everything seemed okay. But now she is a widow with she's a widow with orphans. And she goes on, again, in beautiful Hebrew. This woman knew Midrash and Tanakh and Talmud and Halakha and Kabbalah. It's gorgeous, gorgeous Hebrew. And here I will relate to you the matter of my troubles and my predicament. The evil Romans, and there's basically she's talking about the rulers there in Kurdistan, have caught me and overwhelmed me. It seems to me they must have had taxes to pay that they could not deal with, and overwhelmed me. For when the rabbi of blessed memory passed away, the Qadi, or the judge, sent men who seized my home. So she has a serious problem here in that her home has now been taken by the government. Those heretics took the key and sold all my clothes and the clothes of my daughters, may their rock and creator be preserved, the books that were there in front of me, and left me with a debt of 100 piastres to plague me. So here we've got a very, very serious problem. Her father's gone, her husband's gone, and now the government has come in and is taking away, trying to take everything they possibly can, leaving her with a debt. I have no escape or refuge anywhere but the mercy of the heavens and your mercies. So take pity on me for the sake of my father and the rabbi. May they both be of blessed memory. May neither their teaching nor their names be in vain in these communities. So you see how modest she is, saying everything should be it should be, and because her father and her husband were such amazing men, and she's obviously sending this letter asking for help. and not really knowing that she can't go on, the yeshiva can't go on if this happens. And she sends letters out, not only within Kurdistan, but outside of Kurdistan. And we have, and we know that she was in contact with many. And she said here, and thus he did as he was commanded from the outside, the rabbi of blessed memory. I did this already. We're going backwards. Her story continues. I continued teaching Torah, explicating and preaching about ritual immersion, Shabbat, ritual purity, prayer, and the like. In this predicament, those debts with interest of the aforementioned amount weigh upon me, and those 100 piastres, which I have nothing to sell. She has nothing to sell. They already took her clothes, the books. Of course she has nothing to sell to pay them, nor a grown son do I have. Now she did have a son. She talks about daughter. She has a young son. Or a messenger to represent me to travel from community to community. And here is the first time we see that there is a problem because she's a woman. It is not acceptable for a woman to travel from town to town. Now, do take into account the fact that it is not only a question of being acceptable or not acceptable, it's extremely dangerous. We're talking about 17th century Kurdistan with tribes that are fighting one another, and the last thing she needs to do is to go out and leave her children orphans of their father and their mother. And she says, as it is written, all of the honor of the king's daughter is inside, dressed in gold brocade, that she should be staying home. So we've got this predicament. She's really got a problem. How is she going to survive? How is she going to keep the yeshiva going? Are other scholars going to take her, stand up for her? Are other communities going to send her money and whatnot? But I do want to show you that her standing was amazing. Her standing among her peers. And here, Ben Yaakov published this from a letter that Rav Pinchas Hariri wrote to Asnat. And he writes in here, and I don't think, yes, I did not translate it, Lechi v'nishkia yada, go and kiss her hand. Ki adonatrecha v'hishtachavila. She is your mistress, and you should bow down before her. And this is taken from Psalms. Okay, and then he's talking to her. Liad gvirti, to the hand of my lady. With snif tifarti, she's amazing. And here, kvod moratenu, our honorable teacher, and rabbanitenu, and our rabbi, the rabbi Asnat, may she be protected. May her life be protected. And then here, and whoever writes a letter of it, except for my mistress, my lord, Asnat, and then he gives her the nun resh vav, which in Aramaic is natarach mana v'folka. May God protect her and redeem her, and she should be, and anyone who doesn't respect this will be under a cherem, will be under a ban. In other words, this is something that has to be taken very seriously. So we see, it's amazing to see how esteemed she is. Ugvirati, Yonati, Tamati. Again, this is from the Song of Songs. And my mistress, and my greatness, and the rabbi, and she who I mentioned her name. May God be with her, and may God make her name grow. Amen. This should be God's will. This is quite amazing to find a letter like this being sent to a woman in 17th century Kurdistan, but she had super impressed them. Here we have, and this is from the Jewish Theological Seminary, this is a poem. It's also, it's sort of a three-part poem that the first one on top, it says Shemesh, Shemesh, that was actually written by her father. So when she was sending out to show that the yichus she had, who she came from, and that she was descendant from this great man of her father, she put in some of his poetry, and then after that, she put in her introduction there, ve'ata ba'ayin under there, the blurb under there that she writes, and it is here. I transcribed it, her opening statement, and everything here is rhymed. I mean, ve'ata yematzacha kitvi kinori ve'ugavi. You can hear the ee. V'simcha ve'achava ata bo Hashem miftachi. Lematzor ve'ezri v'hanatzor. So matzor v'natzor. Be'efes li ha'azor. Call everyone. She goes there, whether it's lachmi v'meimi, go'el v'o'el, baniti v'hitzavti, hekamti v'heremoti, ta'amti v'retichati. She has beautiful rhymes here where she writes this beautiful poetic opening statement. But what she has here, it's a letter to her patron. Now, she's got patrons because she's running a yeshiva. And everything so far has pointed to the fact that she clearly needs a tremendous amount of help. And she has written to her patron, and this is actually, I go back and show you that it was something that was shown to myself and my husband, who could read this much better than I can, which we again published this in Pe'amim, and it's the third part of it is a personal letter talking about her troubles, and this to show you that even though she was this eminent Rosh Yeshiva, who could she trust? Who can a widow depend upon? Who's going to be helping out? Well, she obviously cannot run the yeshiva on her own. So she's got assistance. But listen what happened. She writing to her patron to explain why she has not sent a thank you letter appropriately. I mean, anyone with good manners knows that you have to send a thank you note when you get a gift. And certainly if you have a patron who is giving you a donation, you send out a letter immediately because you're going to need more, most likely. So she writes, let it be made known to his honor of his Torah, of the matter of the letter that your honor sent to me with the etrogim. Okay, now, why is there a letter with etrogim? Because before this holiday of Sukkot, this patron had sent her etrogim to be sold so that she would then have money to run the yeshiva. This was his way of giving a donation. But she knew nothing about it. They did not deliver, these are her assistants, did not deliver to the letter until Shabbat V'yetze Yaakov. That's closer to Chanukah. Since I saw it and I wrote at such a late date, I was surprised and sent it for my honored friend to clarify the issue, but we argued about it. In other words, one of her assistants, she said, come in here and tell me what's going on, what happened. I asked him, what are you doing to me? And why have you betrayed me? How is it possible that the holy community of Anna, that was a community in Kurdistan that had made this donation, that had sent the etrogim, may God help and protect it, sent me a letter before the holiday of Sukkot, and you hid this from me and did not inform me until now. By now, I would have sent them their answer. What a shame and what a disgrace. And of course, in Hebrew, it's chilpa or busha. This is stronger. My friend sent to me, and here we get classic, passing the buck and the blame. I didn't do it, he did it. It is not my fault, but it was Mr. Musa Galbi. He did not permit the letter to be delivered to you. He commanded me, do not reveal it to her until we see what the price of etrogim will be, and then we can inform her and we will deliver the letter to her. Now, quite frankly, I can't understand what his rationale was, unless he was planning on taking a percentage for himself and then telling her that instead of 30 piastres, he got 20 and pocketing 10, because otherwise it really looks very suspect to me. What is going on? I mean, why on earth isn't he telling her she is the Rosh Yeshiva? She's his boss, and this is not appropriate behavior. You won't find reasons with the elders or advice with the youth. And because I was forbidden to arrest you, she's saying to him, that what is she going to do now? Call up the authorities, call the Kadia, and up and have her administrators, her assistants arrested and take the money from you by force? Was this the consensus? Is this what you guys decide what you were going to do? A mind of the inferior, she's giving it to them, and deceivers. You, plural, were to deliver this letter to me alone. Then your will was all the time that the money would fall into your hands, and later you would have given it to me. You're like, what is going on? What kind of way is this to treat me? And she feels so bad about it. So we see that the kind of obstacles that she has to overcome begin with being. It's not a major obstacle at all, it seems, when she's married and she sees that her husband isn't able to run the yeshiva. She seems to be a natural. She's a natural teacher. She just sort of, stepped into his shoes and took over, and nobody stopped her. But when he died, she's got a major problem there. She's got a financial problem because, and we have letters from her father that also he was looking for money, and he was also, bemoaning his fate that he didn't have enough money to run the yeshiva. So we have things that are being confiscated by the authorities. So she needs money. And then if that's not bad enough, her assistants are pretty unfaithful to her and hiding things from her and not giving her selling the etrogim and giving her the money, or at least telling her we got the etrogim, so she doesn't have to tell the donor how much money those etrogim brought, but to thank you so much and hope that she will get the maximum price and that the life of the yeshiva will be improved. So a matter of trust, this is a problem. And this sort of brings us to another side of her life, which is sort of interesting. Here is this is popular assessment. I called it from an amulet. Some amulets of hers appeared in the 20th century. And they're extremely, extremely interesting. And I do a lot of gender studies teaching, so this sort of fits right in there. You bear with me. And this amulet said, Asnat, the daughter of Rabbi Shmuel Adoni Barazani, was a wise woman and a great Torah scholar. Okay, so what we have here, the first line in this assessment is wonderful. It is giving all of her attributes, or at least in short, a wise woman and a great Torah scholar. Again, here we're in 17th century Kurdistan, recognizing this woman's scholarship and wisdom is quite remarkable. She studied the secrets of Kabbalah. Of course, everybody liked Kabbalah. It attracted everyone, and acquired a considerable reputation for performing miracles and wonders. Now, quite frankly, I don't know anything about Kabbalah being studied in her yeshiva, but whatever it was, whoever wrote the amulet felt that she also had to be a Kabbalist and a mystic. After she gave birth to one boy and one girl, as a married woman, of course, she prayed to God to stop her menses so that she could devote herself entirely to studying the Holy Torah in purity. God granted her wish. Okay, for me, the problem with this amulet is that it starts with her as being this wise woman, this great Torah scholar, and a Kabbalist, but then it turns her into a sexual figure. Suddenly, it's a problem now that she should menstruate and study Torah. Well, she'd been doing it all her life as a teenager, when she got married, before she gave birth, and we also know that we know that this is someone's imagination, because one girl, she talked about her daughters, her banot. She said that they took her clothes in the letter there. So this is imaginary, the second half of it. And God granted her wish. So we have this figure who's revered on one hand, but yet on the other hand, they have to turn her in they have to put a sexual layer here to have her have her being a Kabbalist who's going to make sure that she now won't be this woman who is menstruating and have these difficulties for studying. Okay, so this is one amulet. This amulet is even more problematic because it's clearly a myth. And Asnat was good looking and beautiful. Right? So forget about her being wise, forget about her being a Torah scholar. Now we're in a beauty contest, and this Kurdistani woman is gorgeous. Now I will say that in doing my research about the family and looking up to see what is recorded about her father as well, the scholar Benayahu wrote that he wrote down that her father was charismatic and apparently extremely good looking. So I'm willing to grant that Asnat was also good looking, that she got her looks from her father. Her mother's not in the picture at all. We don't know if her father was widowed and was bringing her up when she passed on or what happened, whatever, but I'll be willing to grant. These are my obstacles, by the way. These are my obstacles in dealing with the amulets. I don't know if there's so much of Asnat's because she probably never saw these amulets. And it so happened that one day, Asenath went up to the roof to spread out the clothes from her laundry. Aha! You should already have a bell ringing there. Clothes from her laundry? Wait a minute. Didn't we see that her father made her husband promise that she wouldn't be doing any housework? Last time I looked, laundry is a time-consuming and a piece of housework, and so we again know. Here we have the myth. They're going to put some magic powers on her. Is going to be something is going to go askew here. And a Gentile saw her and desired her because she's not in the house anymore. She's up on her roof. And it happened that in the middle of the night, the Gentile sneaked onto the roof, and he harbored evil intents in his heart toward the rabbi. She immediately called out the names of the holy ones, and as a result, the Gentile remained hanging on the walls of the roof without being able to move from his place. Okay, so imagine this. This non-Jew, this Kurdistani, sneaks on the roof because he is interested in raping her, and she sees him, she perceives him, she's got these amazing Kabbalistic powers, calls out the names, the holy, holy names, and as a result, he's frozen to the wall. He's absolutely frozen. This is the middle of the night. He's frozen there, and he's stuck there all night. I am sure that he is deeply regretting what he planned to do. In the morning, the event became public. Of course, in the morning, suddenly, there's not a lizard stuck on the wall, but a man who's stuck on the wall. A large crowd of people congregated and observed this marvelous sight. All of their efforts to move the Gentile from his place were in vain. The incident came to the attention of the wali. So interesting that now we have, again, the ruler, the city's ruler. We've got the wali taking part in real life in confiscating her property and telling her that she has taxes to pay and debts to pay. And yet in this amulet, in the imagination of whoever created this amulet, most likely to be put under the head of a woman who was pregnant or wanting to get pregnant or not, have an easy birth, something like that, or someone who was ill. And the wali is alerted to this unbelievable incident. Oh my goodness, there's this guy, he's stuck on the wall of Asenat, the yeshiva, the head of yeshiva, and he shows up. And he himself requested that Rabbanit Asenath release the Gentile. but she refuses, and she takes him on. Okay, in real life, she can't take them on, and she's begging for help because it's so difficult. But in the imagination here, she has refused. Why? As she told him, if this Gentile had come here in order to steal something from my household items, I would now be silent. But he came to me with the intent of doing moral harm, and therefore he will remain hanging in his place. Like, he wanted to rape me, nothing doing. The rulers swore to her. Now look what's going on, this power struggle between a woman, Rosh Yeshiva, and the head of the city, the head of Mosul. This is amazing again to imagine that the popular reader would accept the fact that this woman could say, to nix a request of the ruler. And then the ruler swore to her that if she released the sinful Gentile, he would be punished appropriately and he would be hanged publicly. Okay, now he didn't rape her. He attempted rape, and here we have him promising to punish him appropriately by hanging him. Well, this was enough to convince Asnat that justice would be done. At that moment, Asnat freed the non-Jew who was hanged from a tree. And everyone in the city saw this and was astonished. I think we're astonished too that this would happen. I figured he would be sent to jail, but maybe because she was so eminent that he didn't just choose some poor Jewess, but rather the most respected Jewish in the entire community. So these amulets are really have, again, a sexual aspect to both of them, but you can also see the amazing respect that the Kurdistani Jews had for her and for her abilities that are obviously, supernatural. This is also followed a myth that about a flock of angels. According to the legend, her father often appeared in Barazani's dreams, revealing dangers to her and telling her how to avert them. Again, everything here now is supernatural. On one such occasion, she went to Amedi, another town in Kurdistan, where she convinced the Jews to celebrate Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, outdoors, as had been their custom before they were threatened by hostile Gentiles. So you see that they had moved inward inside the synagogue, they were doing the celebration, and she encouraged them, let's do it outside. This is the traditional way we did it in the past. As they proceeded with the celebration, there were shouts, and they saw flames shoot up into the sky. The synagogue had been set on fire. Okay, so we see that, again, we've got this hostility there, and not just a rape, and not just taking, of confiscating her belongings, but here they leave the synagogue to go outside and have their have their custom, and meanwhile someone comes in and sets the synagogue on fire with all the sacred books and scrolls in it. After Barazani whispered a secret name she had learned from her father, the people saw a flock of angels descending to the roof of the synagogue. The angels beat the flames with their wings until every last spark had been put out. Then they rose up into the heavens like a flock of white doves and were gone. And when the smoke cleared, everybody saw that not only none of the Jews had been hurt, since the congregation had been outdoors, but that another miracle had taken place. The synagogue had not burned, nor were any of the Torah scrolls touched by the flames. After that miracle, the Jews of Amedi were not harassed by the Gentiles for a long time. Gratefully, they renamed the synagogue after her, the synagogue of Rabbanit Asnat, and the legend ends with the words, and it is still standing today. So again, we see here that even mythologically, we have obstacles that she was facing, whether it be an intruder into her home, whether it be a flame that she sees in the synagogue about to go up, about to go up and be burned, and she is able to deal with them, so that we have real obstacles and we have imaginary obstacles. But in the mythological is giving her superpowers. In real life, she is struggling. She is clearly struggling, but she is getting support. I will give you an example to show you how eminent she was. She got a letter from the Jewish community of Baghdad asking her to send them a learned scholar from her yeshiva because they needed a rabbi, and she sent her son. So here we see then also she is managing to keep that yeshiva going and to keep her reputation and to have outsiders, ask for her to supply them with a scholar for them. Here I thought I would just show you, there's a children's book that came out, it was last year or the year before, by Sigal Samuel from California, and she spelled Asnat, which is actually a mispronunciation of it's Asenath, and her dove, I was the advisor for this book, and so she didn't accept my spelling, but she accepts some of my other comments. And here we have her with this. It's a lovely children's book here. Where you have her on the right side. That's supposed to be sitting with her father, studying with her father, with her as a child climbing up the stacks because she was so anxious to have knowledge. And this is from the miracle, the miracle of the fire, and also showing how people came to honor her. Look, what's interesting is that her father actually was buried outside of the yeshiva, and that tomb became a place for holy pilgrimages of the Kurdistani Jews. And here they also have they're coming to pay respects to her. This I found on the internet. Someone thinks that this is her grave. I haven't the foggiest idea if it is or not. This one I love also from the internet because here she is. Here is how they imagine. I mean, I see this as obstacle because as a social historian, I love the documents. The documents are telling me a lot about her, especially the ones that she wrote. I know who she was, what she was doing, what she was saying, and what problems she had. And then from the amulets, we see what kind of problems the common Jew thought she could have encountered. Okay, they were not real, whether it be someone coming to rape and someone, and someone coming to and not being able to be a great scholar because she still has her menstruation. But here I look at it and I laugh because I highly doubt this is what she looked like. I highly doubt this is how she dressed. And I really think that the last place I find her, what I find her holding would be a bouquet of flowers. I would have found her with the Talmud in her hand, or maybe Megillat Esther if we want to do something on the women's side, or whatnot. This is a new painting that was done by Lena Ravenko for the Anu Museum. That was the old Beit Tutzot, now Anu. And Lena was sweet enough to send me a lovely copy of her of how she perceived her. And this is so interesting because we see how she's sitting, granted, but she stands tall. I mean, she's holding a book. She's not holding flowers. She's up there. She is not as beautiful as the previous image was, but she is dressed modestly, and all the yeshiva students are gathered around her, almost, listening to her, learning from her, almost as though worshiping her, because look how large she is. Look how large she is as compared to these little, and I can't say yeshiva boys because they all have beards, but extremely interesting. And And I would say I went on looking for websites, and there's this website that's called, that has different famous images and specifically women. And here we have Asenath Barazani. They decided that that's when she lived, the Tanait, because Tanait is a scholar of Chazal, of the sages, a sage. And in it there's also they used to sell a T-shirt with that bidiyuk on the front, an Asenath Barazani T-shirt. This here, my last image is something quite also remarkable in that once I published with my husband an article about her, and she is so revered still today by the Kurdistani Jews. We became sort of the experts and the lovers of Rabbanit Asnat. And a dear friend of mine went to pay a shiva call to his in-laws, whose last name is Barazani. And they're Iraqi Jews, because they're also descended as well from her son. And somehow he said to them, they said, look what we have here. We have this family tree. And on the top, who's the first one? Nitanel. I said that her father was the son of Nitanel, Harav Nitanel Barazani. And then Harav Ha'adoni Shmuel Barazani ubito Asnat Ba'ala. Also, they threw in the husband as well, Ba'ala, Harav Yitzchak Mizrahi. So her husband was Yaakov Mizrahi, and she was Asnat Barazani, and then followed it all the way through to the 20th, there was a 20th century, 21st century. And the first thing, they said to him is, of course you know that, she has this wonderful material about her, because Asnat Barazani is the most revered member of our, from our heritage. We are so proud of her. So what I've tried to show you is how circumstances created an unusual situation for a young girl who was a daughter of a Rosh Yeshiva, who brought her up like a son, but respected her learning and her knowledge, and found her a partner who respected her knowledge, and found, and all the yeshiva bookers, all the boys who came, all the young men who came, respected her, and the community respected her, and the heads of the non-Jewish leaders there respected her. And she faced obstacles. She faced widowhood. She faced poverty, personal poverty. She faced problems in running the yeshiva. But she managed to survive using her wits, using her talents, turning to others who supported her because they knew what a remarkable person she was and how worthy it was to support the rabbah or rabbanit Asenath Barazani. Thank you.